The jungle was a wall of green and shadow, steaming under the weight of a twin sun's light, filtered through a canopy so dense it swallowed sound. Captain Veldar moved with the confident stride of one who believed himself untouchable, his armor humming with the soft throb of a cloaking field. 5 other scouts flanked him in loose formation, each with their own scanning arrays sweeping the undergrowth. Their orders were simple: locate and eliminate a rumored human sniper who had been disrupting supply convoys. The captain's mandibles clicked in amusement as he read the mission brief for the last time. Camouflage, it claimed, as if the word were meant to inspire fear. Primitive concealment, fabric, mud, bits of foliage, meant for unrefined eyes. Veldar's squad had multi-spectrum vision, phase-penetrating lidar, and heat mapping that could pick out a vole under the soil. Whatever earth-born trickery the soldier possessed would be laughable in the face of such technology. They moved silently, gliding through vines that hung like cords from unseen heights. Trooper Herrick muttered to the comms, "I heard they smear themselves in dirt and leaves." His tone was derisive. How does mud fool a thermal scan? Another scout, Yeldar, chittered with amusement. Maybe their ape brains think shadows make them invisible. Laughter rippled through the squad. Yet beneath their humor, Veldar was aware of the reports. A dozen patrols had failed to return, all within a 30-kilometer stretch of this jungle. Bodies, when they were found, showed precision wounds. Armor pierced cleanly through the weakest joint, no wasted energy. Still, arrogance was easier than caution. "This human will not see the sun set," Veldar said, brushing aside a broad fern. The deeper they advanced, the more the jungle pressed in. Thick leaves muffled their footfalls, and the air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and unseen decay. Birds that had been calling moments before had gone silent. A whisper of movement, too small to be a soldier, darted across the edge of Herrick's vision. He paused, scanning. Small mammal, his visor confirmed. He grunted and moved on. A thin beam of filtered sunlight struck a drop of water, clinging to a leaf, making it glitter. For a fraction of a heartbeat, Veldar's eye caught a different kind of glint far ahead. Sharp, metallic, gone as soon as it appeared. His scanner showed nothing. He dismissed it. They pressed onward. The alien tech hummed softly in their ears, confirming clear ground. No human could hide from this array. No one could fire without revealing themselves. The first shot came as a whisper. A faint crack, almost lost under the sigh of the wind, and Herrick collapsed mid-step. He didn't even cry out. His armor's chest plate had a perfect, coin-size hole just above the heart node. Blood steamed briefly in the humid air before vanishing into the dark loam. Contact! Yeldar barked, spinning in place, visor plates flickering through scanning modes. All readings returned blank. No heat trace, no movement signature, no electromagnetic anomaly. Find the direction. Veldar snapped, though his voice had tightened. They swept the tree lines with disciplined arcs, but the jungle was an endless maze of trunks, vines, and shadow. Another crack, sharper this time. One of the rear scouts folded at the knees and fell forward, weapons sliding from lifeless claws. Veldar's mandibles clenched. The distance was impossible to judge. The report of the weapon was too soft, the impact too precise. Whoever was firing was outside their visible range, perhaps well over 1,000 meters. Thermal scan now, Veldar ordered. The squad's displays shimmer with ghostly shapes of animals, leaves, and the faint outlines of their own armored forms. Nothing remotely human registered. "This makes no sense," Yeldar muttered. "He should glow like a furnace against this backdrop." "He's masking it," Veldar replied. It was the first time he allowed the possibility that the camouflage was not primitive, but rather a deliberate countermeasure to their technology. A rustle to the left drew 2 scouts into a crouch, weapons trained. The undergrowth trembled, and a bird, startled by some unseen predator, burst upward with frantic wing beats. The scouts relaxed a fraction. That fraction was enough. The next shot tore through one scout's neck joint, severing the neural conduit. He went down instantly, no time for a cry. The jungle swallowed the sound of his fall. 3 remained now, plus Veldar. He felt the first real coil of unease tightening in his chest. The human was toying with them, eliminating one at a time, never revealing himself, never giving them a target. Spread out, make him choose. Veldar's voice was low, deliberate. His troops obeyed, fanning into foliage with 30 meters between each. The captain's own weapon was up, scanning every shadow. Somewhere out there, the sniper watched them. Veldar could feel it, the sensation of being studied, measured, not hunted by a beast, but by something calculating. He had been in wars across 5 star systems, had faced predators whose teeth could shear bone, whose cunning could set traps days in advance. None of them had made him feel like prey the way this silence did. Another flicker in the leaves, a suggestion of movement, or the jungle breathing. His crosshair settled there, but he did not fire. The rules had changed. When the 4th shot came, it wasn't aimed at a body. It struck a vine above Yeldar's head, sending it whipping downward. Instinct made the trooper flinch sideways, into the open. That was when the Real shot came, puncturing his temple plate. Veldar exhaled slowly, forcing his mind into calm. The human was not just killing them. He was manipulating their reactions, shaping their movements like pieces on a board. "Keep moving," he told the 2 survivors. "No pauses, no hesitation. We flush him out." But deep down, he already suspected the truth. The human had no intention of being flushed. Far ahead, beyond their vision, a man lay still as stone in a nest of leaves and earth, the barrel of his rifle just peeking from the undergrowth. His heartbeat was slow, steady. His finger rested lightly on the trigger, patient for the next mistake. Veldar adjusted his visor again, cycling through modes, but the jungle gave him nothing. For the first time in years, he felt the cool edge of doubt. "Find that human," he murmured, more to himself than to his team, "before it finds us." The jungle did not answer. Somewhere in the green, the rifle waited. Sergeant Elias Kane lay prone in the earth, the jungle breathing around him like a living thing. The ground beneath his chest was cool and damp, pressing its weight into his ribs as if it meant to keep him there forever. His ghillie suit was no single shade. It was a patchwork of greens, browns, and grays, stained with mud and streaked with moss until even had trouble finding his own arms against the soil. Thin strips of mesh fluttered faintly in the wind, mimicking the movements of nearby leaves. Nothing about him reflected light. Not the matte black barrel of his rifle, not the sight's glass, carefully painted and dusted with grime. Through his scope, he watched the aliens regroup after the last kill. They moved in staggered lines now, each scanning a different vector, their overconfidence stripped to the bone. The one in charge, Kane had marked him as a leader minutes ago, was taller, carried himself with the tension of someone fighting to keep fear from showing. Kane tracked him for 3 slow breaths, gauging the spacing between steps, the intervals of his glances. Not yet. A smaller alien paused to skin a tree trunk, its weapon sweeping in a tight arc. Kane shifted his aim a fraction and squeezed the trigger. The suppressed crack was no louder than the snap of a twig. The alien dropped without a sound. The leader spun toward the noise, but the jungle swallowed it whole. Kane had already moved. He slid backward like a shadow, rifle close to his chest, boots gliding over the leaf litter without a single crunch. 10 meters behind, a narrow gap in the brush opened into a shallow depression he had prepared before dawn. It was nothing more than a hollow line with ferns and covered in a thin mesh of vines, but it broke every sensor field he knew the aliens would use. His breath came slow, measured. He could feel his heartbeat in his fingertips, not from fear, but from the calm edge of focus that came only in the midst of a hunt. This was not war to him. This was craft. Through the mesh above, Kane spotted 2 of the remaining scouts advancing cautiously. Their formation was tighter now, their movements abrupt, their scanning arcs overlapping. He let them pass his first position entirely, then angled his scope through a slit in the foliage. This time, he didn't aim to kill outright. He sighted on the knee joint of the alien on the left and fired. The shot cracked through armor, dropping the scout with a howl. The other darted toward his comrade, instinct overriding caution. Kane watched them huddle for cover and smiled faintly. That was the problem with working in pairs. You shared the same panic. He let them stew there, knowing the leader would hear their calm chatter, feel the draw to that location. The aliens would think they had found a weakness. In reality, Kane had already charted 3 likely approach routes to that spot, and he had lined to fire on all of them. Minutes later, the leader arrived with the last uninjured scout, weapons up. They moved with purpose, scanning every bush and tree trunk. Kane stayed still. The suit covered his heat signature. The mud clinging to him masked his scent against the loam. An insect crawled across his cheek and into the shadow of his scope. He didn't blink. The uninjured scout edged closer to his depression. Through the scope, Kane could see the creature's mandibles working, scanning beam brushing the ground just inches from his position. The green haze of the alien's visor passed over him once, twice. No alarm. The scout moved on. Kane exhaled silently, the air barely disturbing the mesh above him. Patience was the blade's edge. Strike too soon and the prey bolts. Too late and the opportunity is gone. He let them think the sniper had moved on. Then, when the leader stepped into the narrow path between two broad trees, Kane fired twice in quick succession. The first shot shattered the uninjured scout's spine. The second ricocheted off a root near the leader's foot, close enough to shower him with splinters. Kane wasn't trying to hit. He was forcing movement. The alien darted sideways, exactly as planned, into a tangle of brush that seemed like cover. A vine snagged his armor, jerking him to a halt. Kane shifted aim, ready to finish it, but the leader tore free and dug behind a log. The game had changed again. The leader stayed down, scanning every direction. His breathing, audible even through Kane's earpiece intercept, was ragged. Kane could hear the muttered command for air support, reinforcements. He smiled without warmth. They wouldn't make it in time. The jungle felt different now. The insects had resumed their hum. The distant cries of unseen birds filtered through the leaves. Kane rolled silently to a secondary firing lane, giving himself a new angle on the log. He could see the edge of the leader's helmet, motionless. He didn't fire. Instead, he eased back into the shadow, letting the alien wonder where he had gone. Uncertainty was a first step toward surrender. Let them imagine every rustle was his approach, every shadow the tip of his barrel. Fear was a better weapon than any rifle. A bead of sweat slid down Kane's temple. He ignored it, watching the wind shift through the treetops. A branch creaked somewhere above. The leader flinched, swinging his weapon upward. Kane noted the reaction time, fast but not fast enough. He thought briefly of the convoys the sniper hunt had interrupted, of the human soldiers in the valley who relied on him holding this ground. The aliens believed themselves hunters. Kane knew better. They were prey that had wandered too far from safety. The leader finally moved, crawling low toward thicker cover. Kane let him get halfway there before lining up another shot. This time, the bullet struck a tree trunk inches from the alien's head, showering him with splinters. The message was clear. I can kill you whenever I choose. The alien froze. His breathing quickened again. Kane could almost taste the decision forming in his mind. Fight, flee, or wait for help. None of those options would save him. Somewhere to the left, a faint metallic click echoed through the trees. The alien's head snapped toward the sound. Kane didn't look that way. He knew exactly what it was. A lure. The game was moving toward its end, but there was one more step to take. He backed away from his current position, every movement deliberate, and slid into a higher ridge that overlooked the area. From here, he could see not just the leader, but the path he would take if panic set in. Kane settled the rifle on its bipod, the crosshairs steady. Below, the leader's visor swept in jerks, hunting for a threat he could neither see nor hear. Kane slowed his breathing until the world narrowed to the heartbeat of the man in his scope. He wouldn't end it yet. Not here. Instead, he waited, letting the alien feel the weight of unseen eyes. The shot would come when it mattered most. Until then, the silence would do the work for him. The jungle reeked of damp soil and burnt propellant, a faint metallic tang clinging to the air where blood had seeped into the roots. Only 3 scouts remained now, their movements clipped and hesitant, the fluid grace of their earlier advance reduced to cautious, halting steps. Captain Veldar's mandibles flexed in agitation, every instinct screaming that the hunt had turned against them. The human sniper was no longer a rumor. He was a shadow with a trigger, dismantling their force one measured shot at a time. He considered ordering a retreat, but the thought curdled in his gut. The Zerkath did not flee from prey, yet the jungle felt wrong. Its silence was oppressive, pressing in from all sides, as if the very trees had allied themselves with a human. He signaled the two survivors to fan out, sweeping in a wide arc. If they moved far enough apart, perhaps they could triangulate the sniper's location. Kane lay 200 meters ahead, his rifle resting on a knotted root, eyes calm behind the scope. He had watched them deliberate through the shifting foliage, noted the stiffness in their postures. They were stretching themselves thin, as he had predicted. The sniper's mind was already mapping their likely paths, marking a narrow ravine ahead as the point where fear would herd them together again. He moved with slow precision, leaving nothing disturbed that could betray his passage. The ravine was shallow, overgrown with vines and carpeted in brittle leaves. Hours earlier, he had laced it with monofilament tripwires strung between natural cover, each tied to charges half buried under dirt. The fishing line was invisible in the jungle's mottled light, ready to turn overconfidence into shrapnel. Veldar advanced at the center of the arc, visor sweeping. A faint ping from his scanner signaled metallic traces ahead. Too small for a weapon, too close to be debris. He crouched, scanning again, but the readings faded into the background static of the jungle. He straightened, uneasy. The right flank scout moved first, stepping into the ravine. Kane heard the faint snap of filament breaking. A heartbeat later, the undergrowth erupted in a roar of concussive force. The scout was torn apart before he could even scream. Shards of armor clanged against tree trunks. Leaves swirled in the blast wave, and Veldar staggered under the shock. The second scout crumpled nearby, his chest plate punctured by a spray of jagged metal. The captain's ears rang. The world narrowed to the pounding of his own pulse. Through the ringing, he caught it, a slow, deliberate sound. Footsteps closing in. He rolled behind the smoldering remains of a tree trunk, weapon raised. The haze of dust and drifting ash blurred his vision, but a figure emerged from the green like a spirit of the forest itself. At first glance, the human seemed woven from the jungle, twigs and moss, strips of tattered cloth and damp earth. No gleam of exposed metal, no sharp edge for light to catch. Only the dark, steady shape of a rifle cradled against his shoulder. Veldar's finger hovered on the trigger. He had faced enemies with claws, with venom, with ships that blotted out the sky, but none had carried death with such quiet certainty. The human's stance was relaxed, almost casual, yet his eyes, narrow, focused, held the weight of someone who had already calculated every possible outcome. The alien's visor fed him no data, no thermal spike, no electromagnetic trace. The man before him might as well have been part of the terrain until the moment he stepped forward. Veldar realized with a clarity that cut deep that their scanners had never failed. They had been outmatched by adaptation, by a predator who needed nothing but patience and a weapon he knew as an extension of himself. Kane didn't speak. He didn't have to. He raised the rifle a fraction, and Veldar saw the dark hollow suppressor aimed directly between his eyes. The moment stretched, the jungle silence deepening into something absolute. The captain's mandibles clicked once, a reflex of defiance, but his weapon stayed lowered. He had the bitter sense of being allowed one last thought before the inevitable. In that instant, he understood why the others had died without warning. There was no contest, only the slow realization that the contest had been over from the start. The shot was almost gentle, a muffled crack that barely stirred the leaves. Veldar's body slumped against a log, eyes glazing as the human stepped past without breaking stride. Kane paused only long enough to kneel by the wreckage of alien gear, slipping a compact scanner from his belt. He downloaded their tactical maps, copied encrypted comms data, and slid it into a pouch. Efficiency nothing wasted. He didn't linger to watch the aftermath. Reinforcements would come soon, drawn by the fading echo of the blast. By then, he would be another shadow among thousands, moving with the wind toward his next firing position. The jungle accepted him back without protest. A few minutes later, the clearing lay still again, littered with armor fragments and scorched leaves. A single vine swung lazily over the ravine, stirred by the fading tremor of the blast. In the canopy above, birds began call once more, their voices tentative at first, then steady. Kane's figure was gone, swallowed entirely by the shifting light, and layered greens. Only the memory of his presence lingered, a reminder that in these depths, survival did not belong to the loudest or the strongest, but to the one who knew how to disappear. Somewhere far ahead, another patrol was moving toward this sector, unaware of what had happened here. Kane adjusted the weight of his rifle across his back and kept moving, his eyes already scanning for the next place to vanish. The hunt was not over. It never was.